Welcome to the IREL podcast. Are you sick and tired of real estate gurus pitching their next free construction deal, only to find out years later they were completely wrong? Worried the next overseas conference you spend thousands to attend will only be used to sell overpriced lots in deserted developments? Join thousands of other international real estate seekers who are looking for their place in paradise without the sales pitch. Straight from your host, Taylor White.
Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the IREL podcast. I am your host, Taylor White. I am simply thrilled to sit down and speak with Sam Miller from Colombia International Real Estate SAS in Bogota, Colombia, and we will get down and dirty with the Bogota real estate scene and have you coming away wanting to investigate its local property market further or cross it off your shortlist entirely and continue listening. Right now from Sam, you will learn why he believes the Panamanian and Costa Rican real estate markets are not all they're cracked up to be, but Bogota's is. The inside scoop on if transferring money in and out of Colombia is even legal in property transactions. What you might expect to earn on a monthly basis in rental returns after you buy. Explaining what a strata is and why it's critical when checking out different property sectors. His surprising reveal about local commissions and much more. And don't forget, if you're listening to this podcast and want to grab Sam's contact details, links on buying or selling Bogota real estate, or any other show notes, head on over to irelpodcast.com/2. That's irelpodcast.com/2. I'm excited. Let's get Sam on the phone. Hey Sam, it's Taylor White. I'm excited to have you on the podcast today straight from Bogota, Colombia. So we can get to know you personally. Tell us about yourself and where your stomping grounds were before you ended up in Bogota.
All right, well, thanks. Well, I like to say that I'm mostly Australian. My parents are American and Canadian, but I kind of grew up in Australia, studied there, and I was living in Canada, decided to get to know South America. And I figured the best way to do that was on the back of a motorbike. So I headed south with a friend about 5 years ago now. And I thought the idea was to do about 4 months traveling through and then head back to Australia. Along the way, I just fell in love with, Latin America, but Colombia in particular, and decided to stay.
Awesome, Sam. I really love that story. And so we can get a better idea of you professionally, give us your brief resume, if you will, leading up to working at Colombia International Real Estate SAS.
All right, sure. I studied business and marketing when I was in Australia. I come from a family of kind of property investors. My kind of career has been in internet commerce, a bit of business management. So, I mean, I'm always looking. I haven't come into this kind of on a sales side first. I look at kind of properties from an investment eye first. When I kind of arrived to Colombia and I decided to stay here for the long term as opposed to just passing through, I needed an apartment and saw the kind of the gap that was in the market for helping foreigners who decided to kind of purchase or rent properties in Colombia. The thing is that Colombian companies, they know how to service the locals, but not the international crowd. So I found a Colombian partner who was also a property developer, and we decided together to partner up, and he shared the same vision, and that's how we kind of created Colombia International.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so now we're getting more familiar with who you are, both on a personal and professional level. Let's start to dig into your journey just a little bit. Take us back to your mindset. What were some of the reasons why you decided to look at other countries to begin with years ago? And then maybe which countries you were considering before choosing Colombia?
Okay. Well, yeah, like I said, I never intended to set up a life here. It was a decision I made when I arrived here. During the trip, I passed through, all the Central American countries. In particular, I'd seen the kind of developments which had happened in Costa Rica and Panama. But I didn't feel like I kind of gelled with that vibe. I think it was a bit too kind of gringoized for me. So I kind of continued through and saw that Colombia still had its culture. It still has its kind of, its it stays true to its kind of passion, and
Right.
that's what I liked about it. And I see that it wasn't as discovered. It's definitely undiscovered in terms of like the kind of media attention it's gotten in the last 15, 20 years. It's got an old reputation that's dying slowly, but it's still kind of the only thing that people know about the country. So half of my job is kind of making it easier to purchase properties here. And half of it's about educating, what changes have happened and kind of describing the improvements that the country has made since that time.
Absolutely. And Sam, I love the quick breakdown of other countries in Latin America and taking us down your memory road. I'm always fascinated to learn about which countries people have considered and why. Now, let's delve deeper into Colombia as a whole, and then why you chose Bogota in particular, especially instead of places like Medellin, Cartagena, or Cali.
Okay, yeah, the Bogota, there's a very big kind of debate amongst expats who come to Colombia to live between Bogota and Medellin, Cartagena to an extent as well, but mainly Bogota and Medellin. Medellin is a beautiful city. The climate is the city of the eternal spring, so it's got great weather. I chose Bogota because of the opportunity, because of the size, because of its potential, and as a base to go to all the other places. It's a $50 plane flight to the coast. It's 2 or 3 hours from about 20 to 30 smaller towns, which are interesting to visit on the weekends. So in terms of the day-to-day thing, I really like that. And in terms of the country as a whole, Colombia compared to other countries in Latin America, it's got a stable inflation rate. The GDP is growing about 4 to 5% a year over the last 10, 15 years. Bunch of free trade agreements that are going on. And I think one of the biggest kind of things that has held the country back so far has been infrastructure. Recently, the President Santos has announced the 4G infrastructure plan. Whether it's part of his kind of re-election kind of campaign hoo-ha, or whether it's really going to happen, it seems to be legitimately going to be invested. But that's going to double the amount of paved roads in the country, improve the ports, improve the train system, and maybe even work on the river transport as well, because that's really been the only one of the bigger obstacles holding back Colombia.
Well, I love that, and I couldn't agree more and believe Bogota is an awesome city for having an amazing lifestyle full of things to do, see, and enjoy. Through my travels, I'm a firm believer in that I either get a place or I don't. Share with us some reasons why Bogota speaks to you.
All right. It's interesting. I've never had a boring day here. Every day presents either a challenge or an opportunity or a new experience, and I like that. It's not somewhere where you're going to get bored in a routine. Whether it's an interesting, a crazy, or difficult experience, either way, it makes you feel alive, and that's what I kind of like about it. It's a very quirky city. It has all the usual problems of a large city. It's got the traffic, it's got things like that, which it's working on. At least it's trying to improve it with the new metro system that should be in a few years. For example, on Sunday they have an event called the Ciclovia, and they shut down some of the larger roads in the city and turn it into bike and pedestrian only. So it has some kind of innovative ideas that it likes to employ, and in general, just a really enjoyable city to live in.
Well, Sam, we have gotten to know you both personally and professionally, reasons why you chose Colombia and why Bogota speaks to you. Now it's time for us to pick your brain on the local real estate scene. And to get the juices flowing, we're going to do a quick round of what I like to call the real estate hot seat, where I ask you 5 rapid-fire questions, and you give me an answer in 15 seconds or less each. Sam, are you ready for the Bogota hot seat?
Let's do it.
All right. What currency is real estate priced in?
The Colombian peso, which is about 1,900 pesos to $1 right now.
Is owning property as a foreigner legal?
Absolutely. You have the same property ownership rights as a local.
Can property be titled?
Yes, it can. Full ownership rights with title.
Can money flow in and out of Colombia easily, or are there currency restrictions?
In general, the paperwork is a nightmare. The only really extra kind of obstacles you have to face when bringing in money is they're very concerned about money laundering because of the drug history in the past. So as long as you can prove that the money's clean, and we have kind of ways to advise you how to do that, then there's not really a problem.
That's great. And of course, my number one question, what is your favorite local drink, Sam?
It's a drink called aguardiente. It's a clear liquor, and it's a very social drink. It's not the best tasting liquor, but it's drunk in a group, and it's drunk in a social setting, and it kind of encapsulates that Colombian kind of spirit of the rumba.
Well, I had it when I was in Medellin, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like a sugar cane alcohol. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, awesome. Now you can relax, but just a little bit, as you are off the Bogota hot seat. But it's time to zero in on the local real estate scene. Give us your brief synopsis on the Bogota real estate market over the last few years, where it is today, and then where you see it heading for the next few years.
All right, sure. I've heard a lot of people say that Bogota is in a bubble, and they quote high prices for that reason. And it is true that there are some very high prices in particular parts of Bogota. To explain the kind of real estate system in Bogota, there's 6 stratas. Depending on which strata it is, depends on how much subsidies are given and tax subsidies are given to the property and the utilities to that property. So you have, as people are moving up the social classes here and making more money, they're wanting to live in particular parts of Bogota, which, you know, the upper ones have been very saturated, and the prices in those specific areas, you know, are hitting $7,000, $8,000 a square meter,
right,
comparable to Miami Beach and Manhattan. But I mean, to take a kind of a grander look at the market, you got to look, you know, over the past 15 years, what's happened, why the prices have increased. You know, since it was relatively flat leading up to about 2000. Since then, it started growing. It went along with the U.S. It got up to near 25-30%, kind of parallel to the U.S. housing bubble. After that, it slowed down, and now it's at a healthier and I would say more sustainable level, about 5 or 6% in terms of capital growth. So what you have is you have a lot of people who have one property, and they've heard about the gains that people have made over the last 10 years. People have bought it and they've sold it, you know, within 6 months to a year for 50% more. So you've got new people who are selling their apartments and expecting to get the same, and it's not like that anymore. So a lot of the time I have to manage the expectations and tell them. The problem is they can be very, I wouldn't say stubborn, but I would say patient. And I think it's in the culture that, you know, they're fine to wait as long as they can get the price that they want, because they want to get the same kind of gains that their neighbors got, which kind of happens all around the world, I guess. So I mean, so the important part is looking into finding a property that has an owner that is, you know, is listening to what the market is saying and not what the people around them are saying.
Awesome, Sam. You have me sold on Colombia as a country, Bogota as a city, and then its real estate outlook within the near future. Of course, you don't have a crystal ball. I sure as heck don't. No one does. But that's why it's so vitally important to get on-the-ground insight from local real estate professionals. And yes, I just used the words local and on the ground in the same sentence to drive home a very important fact. Sam, you are not some newsletter writer who might spend a few days in Bogota and then send out emails with hot buys calling yourself an international real estate guru. You are there in the trenches on a daily basis, dealing with local buyers, sellers, agents, lawyers, and every facet of the real estate business. Break this down even further for us. Pretend you are Google Maps or Google Street View. What streets, neighborhoods, or parts of the city are we talking about in Bogota?
All right. We're talking most foreigners who come to Colombia, they're looking for, you know, more modern services, and that usually ends up being somewhere in North Bogota. So if you're more familiar with it, it's Calle 70 and North, which is basically, it's a grid system. It's quite useful for finding things. But we're talking suburbs like Cedrito, Cedro, Santa Barbara, Unicentro, Chico, Rosales. Those are the ones that are more saturated, and it is very difficult to find a better deal there. And going on a point that you said before, you know, being on the ground here, the gringo price, I think, is something that's evident in a lot of Latin American countries. So we kind of use our Colombian agents to avoid that, especially in negotiations. We tend, depending on who the owner is, we decide to kind of negotiate first with the Colombians, so we can get an accurate representation of what their real price is that they'll accept. So those areas are popular for foreigners, higher kind of per meterage prices. So in terms of buying for capital gains, right now I'd say more Quinta Camacho and Chapinero Alto. They're kind of the areas around it, which are nice. They haven't been as typically or traditionally exclusive, but they are in great areas of the city. One of them provides, some really beautiful architecture. It's Quinta Camacho. You've got some nice old style colonial houses. And then there's Chapinero Alto. Perfect location in between the two major centers of Bogota, but it's nested up on the hill, so you've got properties that are overlooking the entire city. So these kind of suburbs are coming in to fashion right now, and in terms of buying for investing and renting, that's what we're recommending right now.
Sam, that's all fantastic info. But the one thing that I got out of this, and I have lived and traveled around Latin America for 12 years now, is the gringo pricing. Now, just to make sure, and correct me if I'm wrong, gringo pricing doesn't mean like a skin color as in white or from the States or from Australia. It just means a foreigner. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, you've got Colombians that are used to dealing with other Colombians. When someone's coming from another country, they're going to have an expectation that they have more money. Whether it's true or not, they're just going to have that expectation. We try to avoid that wherever possible.
Right. Okay, awesome. Yeah. And now that we have specific locations in mind, what types of properties do you recommend? And let me give you a few brief examples of what I mean. Are we talking about buying pre-construction units for capital appreciation that we later flip? Are we talking about buying completed apartments, houses, or office spaces to generate rental income? Or are we talking about buying land to sell as is or subdivide into smaller tracts? Give us a better idea of what you're talking about and recommending today.
Okay. Speaking for Bogota in particular, land is not an option at all. The Bogota has completely run out of land, right. And the mayor has put in a new kind of building regulation, which the plan is to build up as opposed to out. So it's kind of thrown the construction industry into a bit of a turmoil right now. People are kind of confused about what they can and can't do. But the idea in general, he wants to build more high rises in the center, redevelop some of the downtown. So in terms of land, it's not the kind of lowest risk option to go right now. The more for the investor, older properties for renovation in the areas, like I mentioned before, maybe Quinta Camacho, Chapinero Alto, areas which aren't yet saturated with people looking to invest, but have huge potential. Those are going to give some good returns for capital gains, as well as smaller apartments for furnished rentals. You've got a city which is also entering the international spotlight. You've got huge amounts of companies that are coming here. I just read this morning Facebook is setting up an office as well. That's going to mean a lot of executives, a market which Bogota hasn't really catered to in the past. It's got a lot of hotels, and it's got a lot of long-term apartment rentals, but that short to medium-term furnished rental market, there's a very big gap. And so the clients that we've set up with furnished rentals are doing very well in terms of occupancy rates.
Right.
Yeah, on a typical rental, you could expect 0.7 at least, but more so because of the premiums for furnished rentals here in Bogota, up to about 1.5% rental yields.
Awesome. Okay, so I love the detailed breakdown. Now, I'm going to hit you up with a two-part question that I know everyone listening wants to know, and you have to at least give us a general range so we have some price points in mind. And here they are. Part one, what would be the price range of what we're talking about? Maybe give us a starting price point at the low end to a final price point at the high end, or maybe just some general idea of hey, Sam, what can we expect?
All right, okay. Kind of a tricky question because of the diversity of the stratas in Bogota. But if we're talking about the more popular areas for foreigners who are coming in and a place that they would live themselves,
exactly.
We would start at the cheaper end of apartments, which would be the Chapinero Alto. For an apartment, let's say 100 square meters, maybe about 120,000 US is where you'd want to be starting from that point. That's that's at a lower end for something that's going to be decent. It's not going to be like a dark kind of ground floor hidden away. It's going to, you start going to be able to get a bit of a view and a bit better location. In terms of a higher budget property, Chico, Rosal it's a bit closer to Parque 93, the Zona Rosa, the more kind of popular Centro Comercial is the shopping malls and the restaurants and the bars. Though around those areas, I mean, you've got a city of 9 million people who all see this area as the exclusive place to live. So you've got much higher prices there. For a 100-meter apartment, finding one for less than, let's say, about 350,000 US is going to be a great deal. But they'll start from about there for about a 100 square meter apartment.
Okay, awesome. And you have partly answered that, but I'm going to hit you up with a part two. And what would be the cost per meter? Now, of course, this is a huge question, and it details as well as if you have a smaller apartment, then of course your cost per meter will be higher. If you have a larger apartment, your cost per meter might be lower. If you're in a good part of town, your cost per meter is higher. So all those things come into range. But if you're looking at primarily, let's say, for expats or something coming from outside of Bogota, maybe give us a general cost per meter that people are looking at right now.
Sure, yeah. Well, for example, we have an ongoing investment request for an apartment below 50 square meters at under 2,000 square meters in Chapinero, like north of Calle 70. So if anything comes up in with those specs, that investment group, which does furnish rentals, they will buy it immediately. So it's obviously going to be a good deal if it's about 2,000. So I'd say around like 2,500 something, where there's going to be more items available, more properties available on the market at about 2,000. It's possible to find something for that, but it'd be a great deal.
Right. Awesome. Okay. And for listeners like me who are used to dealing in square feet, divide the number you hear by 10.76 or maybe just a flat 10, and you get close enough numbers to get a ballpark. Okay, Sam, this will be a good transition because now we're into a question that I like to call, what would Grandma do? Grandma calls you up, says she has X amount of dollars to spend. You can't let Grandma down. Share with us 3 specific examples you would show her and explain why these make sense for Grandma.
Alrighty. For starters, one that we've already kind of touched briefly on would be maybe a 2-bedroom, let's say 50 to 60 square meters in the north part of town, Calle 60 and above. Maybe something older that needs a bit of renovation. It's got a nice view. It's got the 24-hour reception in the building. That'd be the most ideal one to purchase. It's going to have ongoing capital gains and a great rental value. For larger investors, commercial space is definitely an attractive option. Office space. We've got a warehouse being rented for $20,000 a month right now, and it's on sale for $2 million US. So that's a good 1% rental yield, and the contract's already there. So that's something. There's a lot of kind of turnkey investment options like that. What else we got?
Just to cut in really quick, like when you say 1%, Sam, like you're talking about 1% per month return.
Monthly rental yield, yes.
Correct. Okay. Okay, awesome. So we are laser focused on specific areas of Bogota. We know our starting price point. We have an idea of cost per meter. We have 3 specific examples which are good enough even for Grandma. Now let me ask you an obvious question. How do we buy? Do we need to come in with all cash, whether that's from our checking account, home equity line of credit, or retirement funds? Or can we come in with a certain percentage down and get local financing from a bank or credit union?
All right. For an independent foreigner coming to Colombia with no economic activity here, with no Colombian relatives or spouse, very difficult, next to impossible. Right. If there is a Colombian spouse, there is a potential that they can declare their spousal foreign income as part of their income and include that in a mortgage. So that is an option. But in terms of an independent investor, it's a lot more difficult. So most of the clients we have are coming in with cash. And so when you're bringing in cash, large amounts of cash, obviously, like we said, we have to declare that it is clean, and that can be by communicating with the bank, the home bank, as well as income slips, any capital gains, any things like that, to kind of ease the process here. And it's important when bringing it in that it is registered as a foreign investment. That's a very important step that we help our clients with. We have had some clients who haven't done that, and they bought property 10 years ago, and now they're facing some pretty hefty capital gains taxes because it wasn't brought in correctly.
Right. Okay. Anyone who has ever owned real estate can tell you, you need to have a money exit strategy in place even before you buy. It's something what I like to call, where's the cheddar? You are buying the property to do what with it to make some money. So, Sam, where's my cheddar?
All right. I think the cheddar is, it's going to come down to buying in a part of Bogota that is the demand is not going to disappear. And the more affluent parts of Bogota, the demand isn't going anywhere. I think that's the reason for the prices so far. The problem is the most exclusive sections they're getting out of reach of a typical home buyer, so they're going to start looking in other parts of town, and so that's kind of where the cheddar is. I think it's in the parts of Bogota that have been traditionally overlooked, and as this kind of trend continues, that people are going to be looking for good rental properties and nice remodeled homes in areas that they haven't looked before. And so that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's where the cheddar is.
Awesome. I like that. Okay, so I wanted to thank you for taking the time to share with us about Bogota real estate. We have heard about your journey, why you chose Colombia, exact areas of Bogota to focus on, price points to look out for, specific examples good enough even for grandma, a money strategy to purchase, and then what we might do with it after the fact to make some cheddar. Unfortunately, Sam, it's time to say goodbye. But before we do, share with us an easy way to get a hold of you, any parting advice you want to share, and then let's say goodbye.
All right. Yeah. Well, I look forward to working with any of the listeners. I know the Colombian market may be daunting for a foreigner coming in, but that's why we're here to make it easier to kind of ease that process. And I'd be a hypocrite if I was mentioned about the gringo prices, but then I was charging gringo my prices myself. So we operate on the local commission rates here, but we can provide that extra step for foreigners who are taking that leap to come here to Colombia to kind of make that process a lot easier. So yeah, I look forward to showing other people the gem that Colombia is.
And, of course, listeners know that they can get all the show notes on our website, but let us know, maybe share like a website, an email, a Twitter account, any way to get a hold of you.
Yep, I've got all the social media stuff. Probably the easiest one is the website, colombiainternational.co. So that's Colombia International in English, .co, not com, co.
Awesome, Sam. I've really enjoyed this conversation straight from Bogota, Colombia to our earbuds. And I hope we can catch up again in 3 to 6 months.
Absolutely.
I want to thank Sam once again for his awesome take being on the ground in Bogota. If you're listening to this podcast and want to grab Sam's contact details, links on buying or selling Bogota real estate, or any other show notes, head on over to irelpodcast.com/2. We would love to hear your thoughts on today's episode and are giving away over $500 in free site upgrades to each and every property owner, agent, or developer who lists real estate on our site and leaves an honest iTunes review. In addition, for all listeners who don't own any real estate, instead, we'll provide an awesome resource guide that will give you amazing discounts to our most popular resources, including vacation rental sites, home exchange sites, house sitting sites, and much more. Just head on over to irelpodcast.com/2 for complete details.
You have been listening to the IREL Podcast with Taylor White. Be sure to hit up irelpodcast.com for more. That's irelpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.